This is the Dynasty Roundtable podcast. On our last episode, we did our must-acquire players or trade targets in Dynasty. So on this episode, we decided we would. It's everybody's favorite episode. It's the episode where we suggest sells in Dynasty. So we're gonna piss some people off tonight. Oh well. Let us know what you think in the comments. Like this content. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But Matt Babich, how you feeling tonight as we approach the Dynasty marketplace once again with our Dynasty sells?
Feeling good. It's interesting. I don't know what this says about what I think about how the season's gone so far, but I found it much tougher to generate a list of quality sells than I have in times past. And maybe that's because I'm more used to doing sort of this preseason market content, which, we have a lot more discerned takes and there's not a lot of information out there. So maybe this is the market, 4, ish weeks into the season, kind of coming together to where we have the information that we've seen through the first 4 weeks. We've been able to adjust not only as individual Dynasty players, but as the market. And so I thought there was a lot of efficiency within the market that I'm generally not used to seeing. But I think one of the biggest questions, and we can go straight into the injuries with this, because I was listening to one of my favorite programs, Get Up with Ray G and Jay Rich, and they were talking about Malik Nabers, and they did a little would you rather, Seth, and it got dark. It got dark for Malik Nabers. They were, granted, it was Jay Rich mostly doing the response, but it didn't seem like Ray had much of a disagreement. But they are on the camp of selling Malik Nabers for some of his near value wide receiver counterparts after this injury. And I want to know what you think about that. I'll kick it to you because it's an interesting, I don't necessarily know where I stand. I think they have very valid points as to why they would want to sell. I would like to hear your thoughts on why you would want to buy, because I'm fairly sure that's where you stand here.
Yeah, well, first of all, RIP to my prediction of Malik Nabers finishing as the wide receiver 1 this year. So pour one out for that. And I don't think that keep trade cut, because they have him number 9 right now, right after Puka Nacua. And I would say at that price, that is crazy. Like that, I don't think you're getting Puka Nacua for Malik Nabers or Amon-Ra St. Brown for Malik Nabers right now, for that matter. I think you have to drop him down a tier, maybe even 2. I think that's probably about where he would be valued according to most people. Now, I could be off on that, but I would think, and I don't know who these trade targets are, but I would think that something fair potentially might be, and I know Saquon's not having the best year, but somebody like Saquon Barkley or maybe Omarion Hampton or a Bucky Irving or a Roma Dunze, which just for context sake is around 22, 23, 24, 25, according to Keep Trade Cut. I would think that in that neighborhood, I would potentially, in the right circumstances, be buying. But what were some of the names they were throwing out, just out of curiosity? Oh, if you're muted. We did it already.
It's been multiple shows since we've done that last, but throughout Pickens, Worthy.
Oh my God. They're going that low.
I think they went 2 above too. So like AJ Brown.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Gosh, you got me looking ahead to my first player here. And let me reset there, rewind the tape.
All right. That gave me a heart attack there.
Yeah, that was wild. I believe it was like Puka, Amon-Ra. It's pretty much all the people near him on Keep Trade Cut. They kind of just went down the list. So like Amon-Ra, CD, JSN, Egbuka, Odunze, London, and then somewhere around like Nico and Tet is where it started to become the question.
Okay.
That's kind of where we're putting them.
I think that's about right, honestly. I saw somebody was asking me Justin Jefferson and a first for Malik Nabers. Essentially, I think there might have been another piece in there, or rather, hold on, I'm getting this wrong. It would have been Malik Nabers and a first for Justin Jefferson. And it would have been projected like mid to late first. And I thought, I don't love giving up a first. You know, I get it. You're getting Justin Jefferson, but I'm not convinced that this is the year Justin Jefferson's going to, I mean, he's awesome. Don't get me wrong. But, you know, if he finishes a wide receiver 8 or 9 overall, it wouldn't shock me this year. Maybe even a little bit lower than that based on the circumstance with Carson Wentz, maybe for another game or two. And JJ McCarthy kind of figuring out the ropes. So
I would try and do that for Puka.
Yeah, because Puka, and we're going to get into Puka here in a little bit. Not that he's a sell, but I just want to, compare him to another player and I'm kind of giving it away. But Puka Nacua is, and I got some grief because I did a Dynasty startup and my first pick was Puka Nacua. And somebody in the comments was like, really? Puka Nacua with your first pick? I think it was like 6th or 7th overall or something like that, which I thought was totally reasonable. And I think there's a legitimate case that Puka Nacua could be the wide receiver 1 in Dynasty.
I don't know why he isn't, to be honest. And I think it's mostly just quarterback retention. Like, we're just scared of what happens with life after Matthew Stafford. But think about what just happened with the quarterback market this year, right? Like, Geno ends up with the Raiders. Sam Darnold is a Seahawk. And granted, I do think the Seahawks just drafted Jalen Milroe. So if the Seahawks continue to perform well, I don't know, Minnesota gave up on him quickly. Like, maybe Sam Darnold becomes a Ram. I actually think I would love him in that system. So there's options, and I wouldn't be too nervous about that necessarily. So I feel like it's a strong case for him to be wide receiver 1, just with what he can do. He can win in so many. It's not that Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson can't, but Puka is undoubtedly more physical. And in this game where we're running a lot more 12 personnel, we're really trying to get the defense to respect the run game to open up the pass game. Puka just has an ability that the other two, Jefferson and Chase, just don't necessarily have. So it's not a knock on them. It's just the game has transitioned to this point, and Puka has that strength, and he's the best at it in the NFL.
I was going to save it for later, but I'll just tell you right now.
Go right into it.
And maybe you already know, but Puka Nacua is the wide receiver 1 in first read targets this year. And he is the wide receiver 1 by 14 first read targets.
That's a lot.
It is insane. And Davante Adams, who's a wide receiver we're going to talk about later, is number 10 on that list with 28 first read targets. So if the Sean McVay system is perfect for fantasy football, and Puka Nacua is the perfect wide receiver to execute what Sean McVay wants to do on offense. Now you're always kind of holding your breath going, please don't get hurt. Please. Because it feels like he makes a trip to the medical tent every game, but then most of the time he just pops right back out and, wipes the blood off of his nose and goes back in the game because he's awesome. But also it's kind of hard to believe too. And this is why he should be at least in consideration for wide receiver 1, if not the wide receiver 1. It's also just 24 years old. I mean, he's a year younger than Jamar Chase. He's 2 years younger than Justin Jefferson, who are ranked ahead of him. And I don't know, man. I honestly think Puka, and I'll throw Amon-Ra St. Brown in there too as 2 wide receivers that I they're ranked high, but damn, they're good. And you can make a case for them being in the top 3, I think. So let's first of all, anything else to add to that before we move on to another injury, and then we'll get into ourselves?
No, we can talk about the really weird exit that was Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill
smiling.
Smiling, and I think it was confirmed today, torn MCL, ACL or something.
Torn ACL and dislocated knee.
Knee. Yeah, so not good. At his age, you kind of wonder, it's Tyreek Hill, so he's extremely, extremely reliant on that speed and that shiftiness to get open, and we had some question marks about him coming into this season. We know he's on the wrong side of 30, and this could potentially be a career-ending injury. I mean, it based on his age and where things were going. He immediately dropped in keep trade cut all the way down to 276th, which I do think is kind of ridiculous. So he's basically free, but we're talking at least a year probably in recovery. So how you feeling about Tyreek Hill these days, Mr. Babbage?
I mean, I was virtually all the way out beforehand. Wouldn't catch me in a situation certainly trading for him before this. And now it's pretty much completely over. Couldn't have happened to a better guy. I mean, it was weird. Kyle Long tweeted something that made me think a little bit differently. Like he messed up his ankle really badly when he was a Bear, and was smiling, and laughing as he was going away. So sometimes your body reacts in weird ways. But to me, it was just really weird, how he was waving and smiling and I don't know. There's a lot of things to me, it was maybe he knows that that might be it.
Yeah, it's hard to speculate on these things, but the first time I saw it, and again, I'm not saying that this is right for me to feel this way. I'm just telling you how I felt in the moment. Okay, man. It was almost like he was happy to be done with the Dolphins. I don't know.
I thought either that or just happy to be cheered for.
That, I suppose that too.
He gets so much bad press and stuff, just hearing people cheer for him, and during that moment where he's probably down because his season just ended, potentially his career. So it seemed almost that he was just kind of taking it in, I don't know what's going to be next kind of. But you're right, it could be done with the Dolphin, done with Tua maybe.
Yeah. It's thank God I don't have to. I mean, obviously no player wants to get hurt, and I would not wish ill on anybody, but no. It's I don't know. It's hard. It's a bizarre reaction. That's all I'm trying to say. So let's get into these sells. All right. I will let you go first because I think your first name, we've talked about him before, but I still think it's an interesting name to talk about. So who is your first Dynasty sell, Mr. Babbage?
Yeah, so I started reading off names that are next to him because I was looking at Ricky Pearsall while you asked what the names were that they were throwing out, and I just automatically started reading off names here. But it has really nothing to do with his performance. He's been performing very well for the 49ers to start this season. Target share's a little bit lower than what we would like. Only one double-digit target game. Granted, this offense, the San Francisco offense, hasn't necessarily been clicking and firing like we want it to, but it's the injuries that are really big here. So Brock Purdy and Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings all unlikely to play on Thursday. At the very least, Purdy and Ricky Pearsall are unlikely to play. Pearsall has that PCL sprain, the same thing that Brock Bowers went through. Bowers didn't miss a game, but he had an extra day of rest, and because it was a Monday night game, 49ers on a short week. And limited clearly through these last couple of weeks. And they say it takes, 3 weeks to shake that off. So we got a few more weeks before we get another healthy version of Pearsall. To be honest, I don't know what to expect with Purdy. He said he was good coming into the game. I thought it felt rushed for him to play against Jacksonville, and feels some soreness in his toe after the game. Says he didn't feel it during the game. Shit, Brock. There's this thing called adrenaline. You have it running through you from the start of the game till after the game. So not surprised you didn't feel it. So who knows who knows how many more games of Mac Jones we see here in this short stint. And then we have George Kittle coming off the tail end of his IR stint coming back. Ayuk doesn't have a timetable, but I think kind of the point here is the longer we go into the season before everyone's kind of healthy and firing, if you're a win now team or even a team that can potentially compete with Ricky Pearsall, he's going to be a liability here for the next few weeks. And even when, George Kittle's down on the field, we still have, granted it was Mac Jones playing, but against New Orleans, only a 9-point performance, played nearly the full game against Jacksonville, only 9 points. So there is some inconsistency in his play. He's a really good receiver, but valued at wide receiver 20, where you have guys like A.J. Brown and Zay Flowers right above him. And you got George Pickens, Xavier Worthy underneath him. And even Travis Hunter's way down there. I still think I'm more bullish than Travis Hunter, than the average person on Travis Hunter long term. I think we're overreacting to what's been going on in Jacksonville to start the season. But I think there's just a lot of other opportunities there for Ricky Pearsall. He's 25. So it's not necessarily like, if you're a rebuilding team, it's not like he's this golden asset, right? If I'm a rebuilding team and I have the chance again, I think it was the exact last time I brought up Pearsall, I said this. If I can trade him for Travis Hunter plus as a full rebuilding team, I will do it 10 out of 10 times. It has nothing to do with the player. I think he's very talented. I just think this is not the right price point for him right now.
Yeah, it feels to me as though he had an opportunity to kind of take over as the wide receiver one. And to a point, he kind of sort of did. I mean, I think he's first on the team in first read targets. Now, obviously, Kittle's been hurt most of the year. 27 first read targets, ranks 17th amongst all pass catchers, which is, impressive. But I think it just comes down for me, because I agree with you on this one. Some of the names that are around him, he's right next to Kenneth Walker. Like he's ranked ahead of guys like George Pickens, Xavier Worthy, Matthew Golden, who again, Green Bay is going to Green Bay. I think Matthew Golden could be just fine. And you mentioned Travis Hunter too. I think, and we talked about it on the last episode, so don't stop watching this one. Watch this episode all the way through. But then when you're done with this one, go back and watch our trade targets, because one of our trade targets, or at least one of mine, I think both of ours, is Travis Hunter, because, if we're going to extend some grace to these rookie running backs, maybe we should extend some grace to a rookie wide receiver. Anyway, the point being is Ricky Pearsall at 25 years old in an offense that's about to get crowded once everybody gets healthy. Kittle, Juwan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk. This was kind of the runway for him to prove that he could be the number one wide receiver, and I'm not sure that he quite did that. And injuries have something to do with that too. But that's a big problem going forward, is injuries.
He's definitely not the clear guy over William or over Juwan Jennings with Kittle out. And then I should say, quick correction, Pearsall did not. He played about half the game in terms of snaps. I think it was maybe early third quarter that he got injured, and then he did try and come back later in the game and then had to come back out. So saying he played nearly the whole game was not a very accurate testament to what happened this past weekend.
Yeah. So I'm going to shift to another 49ers player, and I already know that this is not going to be popular, but it's Christian McCaffrey. He's currently the RB11, 44th overall, according to Keep Trade Cut. And I'll just say it, in some areas he's been efficient, like in yards per reception. He ranks 6th amongst running backs. Yards after contact per attempt, 14th, minimum 50 snaps. 11 missed tackles forced, which is 11th amongst running backs. Nothing really elite there. But 3.3 yards per carry, 3.4 true yards per carry. I think we're starting to see some signs that even Christian McCaffrey, when given a workload, and we're about to talk about his workload because it's been insane, which is leading to really good fantasy performances, which is why some people might think I'm nuts for trading him away. I mean, he's averaging 25 touches a game, Matt. He's 29 years old, coming off of severe injury. You would think if there was ever a time to, I don't know, pace a player or just kind of preserve him for potentially a playoff berth, you would think that that's the goal for the San Francisco 49ers. That doesn't seem to be the case. And I would be doing one of two things if you have Christian McCaffrey. If you disagree with me and you say, Seth, you're wrong, I'm keeping Christian McCaffrey because he's producing for my fantasy team right now and I'm a win now team, fine, go ahead. But you better be going out and getting Brian Robinson right now, because I highly doubt, and this is a big part of why I'm trading him away, I highly doubt he makes it through the season averaging 25 touches a game. Now, maybe they pull back his workload, but through 4 games, that is not what we have seen. So what do you think here? Because, and also the players that are ranked around him, I think it's kind of wild to think like you could potentially trade Christian McCaffrey for Rashee Rice straight up. Like, I don't know. I would do that in a heartbeat right now and just eat the 2 games. But what do you think, man?
Yeah, I don't hate it. It definitely is a team structure dependent thing because the way I play Dynasty, I'm a little riskier because I do go for that ceiling output. And what he's been able to do despite not great performances overall from the San Francisco offense, I think has been really impressive. And it really just speaks to like the ceiling he does have if they have a truly blow up game. Like he hasn't hit, I don't think he's hit 100 rushing or receiving yards, like one of the two in a game yet. And that will open up as his team gets healthier. But I think the thing is, like you mentioned McCaffrey for Rice straight up. I think that could kill your team. Because I think positional advantage does matter. And like if you're sitting there with, let's say you really bought last year and when people were scared and you have some sort of like Josh Jacobs, maybe a Travis Etienne, like you have a pretty loaded backfield. You're playing a really good running back in your flex and you have just no receiver help. Sure. I can buy something there. So I think it's just team dependent. Like I think I'm not like a strong, you have to sell him, but I think there are a lot of avenues to improve your team by selling him and becoming a little less risk averse.
I understand what you're saying, and I think it's a really good point. My final point would be if Christian McCaffrey gets hurt, and I think that there's a good chance that he does, given the workload that he's taken on. I don't think he would crater as far as Tyreek Hill, but how far down the Dynasty rankings? Like, let's say he's out 4 to 6 weeks or longer.
Is it worth losing a potential championship?
I mean, I think you're losing the championship depending on your team structure. If he's out 4 to 6 weeks, you got to get there at some point. But like how far down
we told ourselves that we don't think Derrick Henry could, we've played this game a lot. And I just don't think we're really good at predicting the outcome. Like he had a major injury for like one of the first times in his career. Granted, it was at age 29 and it was double Achilles tendonitis. So it's not great. But at the same time, like this is someone who's been relatively healthy and he took an entire season and took some of the most advanced medical care to get to this point. So like I said, I'm not against you. I am open to trading him. I just don't think I'm going to be trying to sell him just because I don't think he can hold up. And you might be right. He might not be able to hold up, but he's a game-changing asset if he does hold up.
Fair enough. Let us know what you think in the comments. I know that's a pretty polarizing one. Let's move on to your next Dynasty sell. Who is it, Matt?
It's Keon Coleman. And after week 1, I thought, well, maybe I was wrong about this guy. Maybe I was wrong. 8 receptions on 11 targets, 112 yards, and a score. He looked great. A lot of schemed up targets. There was a big debate on fantasy points separation score because he performed really badly and didn't really have any route wins. But there was film put out on him, and there was like, how is he not winning this route? Well, it's because it's a certain zone coverage where they're allowing, a soft underneath throws, and that's where he got open. So it's intended that that spot was going to be open. So there's some debate about that, but the point is, especially in man-to-man coverage, Keon's not really creating separation. He's really not winning on yak either. And the biggest point for me is it took a massive comeback, huge negative game script, massive shootout against Baltimore to hit on that ceiling. And then we've seen games with the Jets, Dolphins, and Saints where he has 11 targets total across those 3 games. So it took 3 games to get back to his week 1 target count. He saw 51% of the snaps, 75% of the snaps, and 73% of the snaps in those weeks. How many of these game scripts that he needed to succeed against Baltimore is Buffalo going to be in? Not many, I would imagine. And again, we look to some of the names that are near him. If I'm a rebuilding team, I think there's plenty of outs on Keon Coleman. I mean, plenty. There's plenty of ways to skin that cat. I don't even need to go into it. But win now, He might get talked about later in the show, but I would still take Davante Adams over Keon Coleman as a win now team. I would rather take a shot on Luther Burden and see what he becomes. I'd rather take Terry McLaurin. Michael Pittman being at 38 with Keon Coleman being at 34 with what's happened through the first 4 weeks of the season does not make any sense to me. Shout out Pittman Hive. So again, it's just a combination of opportunity and value here. I think he's valued over where his opportunity is going to be throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. By the way, breaking news: Bucky Irving's status is up in the air for Week 5. Per Mike, I can never say this guy's name right. Garafolo. All right. So anyway, that's not great if you have Bucky Irving, but yeah, I've never been even though on one of our episodes, I think I said I would pick Keon Coleman in like the 11th or 12th round of a dynasty startup, but that was more of a bet on upside. It just kind of feels like Keon Coleman is never going to happen the way that we thought potentially Keon Coleman could happen. And I just, what I'm sick of hearing is how good of an athlete Keon Coleman is, because up to this point, it's not really translating on the field. And it's very frustrating how Buffalo uses their wide receivers anyway. They kind of use their wide receivers very similarly to Green Bay. Up to this year, I suppose you could throw, Baltimore kind of, maybe that's a bad example. Baltimore this year has been very clearly Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews, but like one of those teams that doesn't really feature one wide receiver. They like to rotate in a bunch of different wide receivers. So again, I think the situation and the fact that, maybe he's not as good as we thought he was, both are contributing to the frustration here. All right, so here we go again. This one's probably not going to be popular, but I have a theory here, and you're just going to have to take this ride with me for a little while. But this is the year, Matt Babich. I'm calling my shot that Derrick Henry disappoints us in fantasy football, and I think you should sell him for somebody else that's going to help your dynasty team. So he's the RB7, 66th overall. The Ravens' defense stinks. They're banged up. Now Lamar Jackson's banged up with a hamstring, which we know those can linger. And for a mobile quarterback, it's not great. If the defense is going to be this bad, then the Ravens are likely going to be playing in a lot more negative game scripts than we're used to them seeing. And already we're seeing this take an impact on Henry's usage. He ranks just number 20 amongst RBs and carries. Now, his efficiency is still off the charts. He's averaging 5.8 yards per carry. So if he gets the opportunities, which he's probably still going to get opportunities, I'd be kidding myself if I was trying to tell you he won't. But he's never really been this third down pass catching running back. And you saw it play out exactly how you might expect it play out this past week when Justice Hill caught that huge touchdown pass. He's also 31 years old. And I get it. Derrick Henry's been awesome for fantasy, but this situation to me just stinks. And I know it's the Ravens, so I know this is not going to be a popular opinion, but if Lamar's truly hampered, with this hamstring injury, and the defense is going to stink, and they're going to be playing from behind, forced to throw more than they want to, then it's going to at least limit the amount of carries that Derrick Henry is going to have, because they're not going to be able to give him the ball as much as they want to. So what do you think of my theory? Because I'm looking at keep trade cut right now. And like I said, he's 66th overall as we're recording this on Tuesday night, the last night in September, the 30th. He's ranked around where George Pickens is, around where Jameson Williams is, Sam Laporta, Xavier Worthy. And it feels to me like a decent time to cash out. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you, because it's really the team structure there. So it's kind of a point of inflection right now where we're just kind of starting to realize what the circumstances of this Ravens team are. And there's really only a couple of weeks more of bad performance before. I think it's even right now, you might struggle to get that value of where he's listed on keep trade cut. because I know I was trying to do a deal where I'm glad I didn't do it because I was going to get rid of Pickens. I had a very overinflated receiver room. I didn't have an elite option at running back and thought it might be worth it. And now the value between Pickens and Henry has massively flipped since it was between week 1 and week 2. So it's been a huge change in value for both of them since then. And he wouldn't be able to come anywhere close with that deal if we put it back on the table with Derrick Henry right now. So I think now is a good time because it's only going to start getting harder and harder to trade Derrick Henry if these struggles continue. And it seems like, at least for the next few weeks, that's going to be the case.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. But I'm just reading the tea leaves as they're coming to me. So let's move on to your next guy. And this guy has come up on our sell list before. But I think it's a good call.
Yeah, it's interesting, but Kyren Williams, RB14, we're starting to see a little bit of Corum, and it might not seem significant right now. It might not. But over the last 2 weeks, Kyren Williams has only had a 66% opportunity share of the backfield opportunities. And to put that into perspective, because it still sounds good, part of what was propping him up was a 78% opportunity share in 2023, which ranked 4th among running backs, and an 83% opportunity share last season, which ranks 2nd among running backs. Drop that all the way down to 66% is devastating for his value, particularly what we saw 2 weeks ago with Corum getting some goal line work and getting a touchdown. I think he got another opportunity over the weekend, and Player Profiler hasn't updated it with that yet, so I'm not 100% sure, but my mind recalls seeing him near the goal line. And while Corum didn't necessarily look the best on his opportunities last week against a good Indianapolis run defense, he had in the previous 2 weeks, and he's starting to churn out more and more of that backfield work. Last week was the closest this has ever been between the two, with 13 carries for Kyren to Corum's 9 and 4 targets for Kyren Williams, I believe, to Corum's 4 as well. So equal targets, only 4 less carries for Blake Corum. And that's in a very tight game script, Seth. Very tight game script. So what happened in week 2 seems intentional. It seems they want to get Corum on the field. So immediately, just off of that alone, even if this is all that this becomes of Blake Corum, 65% opportunity share is not going to get it done for Kyren Williams at his current value. And that enough for me is a signal to sell, because we've been talking about Blake Corum for a while. He had the draft capital. We believe he had the talent, and seeing him out there, he's not overwhelming you. I'll admit it, but he's doing a good job when he's in there, and that's going to continue to get him on the field.
Yeah, I've been a big proponent of buying Blake Corum because I think he's the most valuable handcuff to have in fantasy football in all formats. But yeah, I think you made a great point. I think I'm surprised that we are seeing Blake Corum eat into the amount of usage that Kyren Williams has. And the case for Kyren Williams has always been volume, because we know the Rams don't throw to their running backs. You know, Kyren Williams is just 11 targets this year, and he's not particularly efficient either in the passing game. He's 22nd in yards per reception, 27th in yards per route run. He's number 24 in true yards per carry. And you want to know how and again, NFL teams, maybe they look at this stuff, maybe not. I feel like the Rams are a bit more forward thinking than most franchises. Blake Corum so far, and again, small sample size, number 1 in true yards per carry amongst all running backs, according to Player Profiler. So if you can get some efficiency from Blake Corum, continued efficiency, I could see him eating into more and more of the opportunities. And that is just going to continue to hurt Kyren Williams because he's not efficient, you know. And if Blake Corum is, you know, maybe it becomes more of a 60-40 split down the road, because right now it's more of like a 70-65, 35-30 split. So, all right, let's move to my next guy. And maybe this one won't be controversial. This is quick for me. And I'm seeing the signs with Chuba Hubbard. He's RB21, 88th overall. And I was a big proponent of Chuba Hubbard coming into the year because Dave Canales likes to feature one running back. We saw it with Rachaad White back in the day. And it was true for Chuba Hubbard last year as well. But so far into this season, do you want to guess how many missed tackles forced Chuba Hubbard has on the season?
3.
The answer would be 0.
0. Oh,
0.
I knew it was going to be something like that.
0 missed tackles forced, 3.9 true yards per carry, 29th overall. He's okay, just okay in the passing game. 7.2 yards per reception, efficiency-wise. This Panthers offense it stinks. It's hot and then it's cold. So it's not predictable. Now, what is predictable, at least thus far, is very much similar to like Kyren Williams. We know Chuba Hubbard's going to get the opportunity, for now. He's 13th in snap share, 18th in opportunity share, but, Rico Dowdle is a capable runner as well. And if we continue to see this kind of, inefficiency from Chuba Hubbard, especially if he's not making anybody miss, then, it wouldn't shock me to see Rico Dowdle eat into this opportunity a little bit more. He's also 26 years old, so he's getting close to the age apex. And I just think that they're around where he is ranked according to Keep Trade Cut. There are better options that I prefer. Now, you can't do this anymore, but RJ Harvey is ranked next to Chuba Hubbard. Travis Etienne, I would prefer him. I would honestly prefer Jordan Mason rest of season, and he's a similar age to Chuba Hubbard. So there are just some other running backs and honestly some wide receivers I could go on and mention here that are ranked around him that I just prefer over Chuba Hubbard. So what are your thoughts? And then take us to your next guy.
Yeah, fully agree with Chuba Hubbard. He was one of the guys that I came up with and was putting him down. And I was like, oh, shoot, he's on Seth's list. So I thought that was a great call. Again, another RB that's propped up on bell cow usage that just isn't getting that usage. He went from 78% opportunity share, which was 4th among running backs last year, down to 69% this season so far, which is 18th. And again, it's like we could really encapsulate this all with one metric. And they've been in negative game scripts. They've been in positive game scripts. And we're just not seeing that same usage. Rico Dowdle is getting onto the field, and it's the quorum effect, right? Like Dowdle's not getting on the field like so often that you're watching the game going, where's Hubbard? He's never on the field. But that 10% it literally takes you from being a bell cow to being a mid-tier running back. And that is everything for a guy like Hubbard that was truthfully getting propped up with lack of backfield competition. And there it is, Rico Dowdle taking enough away from him. So completely agree with you there. My next player is someone who I've been on the anti of this player for, so long. But it's Jameson Williams. I got to apologize to Ricky Pearsall. I besmirched his name, disgraced him and his family for having the gall to list him as a sell above Jameson Williams. I know we don't do this in terms of our, severity, so to speak, but wide receiver 21, he's right behind Ricky Pearsall, and he has a way worse outlook. It couldn't even be worse. Williams has only 2 games this season of over 5 targets. He has 1 game of over 10 fantasy points. He has 3 games under 7 fantasy points. He is the definition right now of boom bust. I wanted to scream at people this offseason, Seth. Your J-Mo breakout season loading. Coaching staff says it's going to be another big step for Jameson Williams. They've been saying that for 3 years. It's never happened. It's never, he always just has like 1 or 2 games where we're like, this is it. This is it. No, he's a gadget guy. That's what he is. I'm sorry. I think he's better than what he's been showing this season, mind you. But receiver 21 is nuts. It's good that he's getting on the field for more routes. But what's that leading to? A decreased target share, 17%. He was at 19% last season. He's performing worse on a yards per route run basis. He's not getting as much design targets or motions as he was last year. It's a more conventional offense the Lions are running without Ben Johnson, and it's shown. Granted, he does have a good schedule coming out of the bye. He's got games against Washington, the Giants, Green Bay, Dallas, the Rams, Pittsburgh, all secondaries that are ceding points to receivers right now, but I just can't do it. His value's way too high for a receiver that can't be trusted to be a top 36 receiver on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I've never been a big proponent of Jameson Williams, so I'm right there with you. I think whenever, I don't know, and maybe it's because I'm an old curmudgeon, but I'm just going to get into like my philosophy on Dynasty and on life for that matter. Wherever there's hype in Dynasty and wherever like the masses are gathered around in a circle going, yeah, he's going to, yeah, I automatically get skeptical. Automatically. I'm like, why? I want to know why everybody's paying attention to the like it's in life. Why are certain things popular? I still don't understand. I don't understand why some certain things are popular and others aren't, because I look at some things and I go, that song is awesome. Why isn't it more popular? Oh, it's because, you know, Doja Cat or whatever, her music's more popular, and I can't explain it. And this is very similar to Jameson Williams in Dynasty. I can't explain it. It's because he looks good in the uniform. You know, he looks good running routes. When he does cash in on the weeks, it's very easy to rub it in somebody's face and say, see, look at the speed, look at the route running, look at the scheme. And like, see, I told you. And then 3-4 weeks go by and he doesn't do anything. You know, he is the model of better in best ball. I mean, if you want to look in the dictionary at the term better in best ball, there's Jameson Williams' photo right next to it. And I heard these guys, Evan Silva had him in like the 3rd round of his top 150 or whatever. I was like, really? Why? Like, explain it to me like I'm 5 years old, please, because I don't understand. I mean, the talent, it's one of those things like talent. Yeah, he's got a boatload of talent. But you know who else has a lot of talent? Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta. And these guys are just more dependable options in the offense, in my opinion. So it's just going to limit his upside. And yeah, I know he's 24 years old. Man, I just feel like we are entering, and this is probably a bad example, but like George Pickens, DK Metcalf kind of territory with Jameson Williams. Like, oh my God, look at him, but where's the fantasy points on a consistent basis? They just haven't been there. So
that's disrespectful to George Pickens and DK Metcalf.
Okay. All right. Yes, it's probably
it
right.
Is.
Wait a minute. Like George
it
Pickens.
Is. 2 of them have been scoring and one of them hasn't. And one of them's Jameson Williams.
I'd have to look this up, but I'm pretty sure George Pickens like was a wide receiver 3 until he got to, and he's just had a spurt here with Dallas that ever has everybody losing their minds.
George Pickens on those Lions teams, I can't even begin to describe you how much better he looks than Jameson Williams in a
wide receiver 48, wide receiver 36, wide receiver
it's less
35.
respectful to DK. I think George has way more talent than he was able to show in Pittsburgh.
All right. I can buy that because he has been pretty awesome this year for Dallas, especially once CD went down. I mean, he's wide
still
receiver 5 overall.
Like he's dropping passes over the middle, but he's still making these fantastic plays. Like the concentration drops have got to stop. But I mean, he is infinitely more talented than Jameson Williams. I'm sorry, but it's true.
Yeah. Let us know what you think in the comments. All right. My next player is going to be, I admit that this is team specific dependent, and it's Davante Adams. And this is really more, it's not a mark against him as a player, because I think Davante Adams is awesome. And I think if you look into a lot of the efficiency metrics, like yards per route run, those type of things, first read targets, we already talked about. I think you would say, man, Davante Adams is aging like fine wine. And I think he is, but he is 32 years old. And as we talked about, Puka Nacua is the very clear wide receiver one in this offense. So it has to limit his upside at least a little bit. That being said, he still does rank number 10 in first read target shares with first read targets rather. Number 10 in first read targets with 28. And that's like a full 20 first read targets behind Puka Nacua in the same offense, which is insane. It's just crazy. So I'm just, it's more like the players that are around him. You know, if I'm not a contending team, I think you have to trade Davante Adams, and I have the perfect player for you to go out and get, and that would be Luther Burden, who's ranked one spot below him. So if you could go to the win now team and say, hey, give me your Luther Burden, maybe you can get a little bit on top of that. Maybe you can get a Luther Burden and a 3rd round rookie pick or something like that. I would do that. To me, it just comes down to the player's awesome. It's a perfect fit with the Rams, but the upside's going to be limited. And it's a win now piece. So if I have them and I'm not contending, I'm getting out. If I have them and I'm a win now team, I'm letting it ride, because there's really nobody that could produce in at least, around where he's ranked according to Keep Trade Cut. So what are your thoughts here? I reluctantly put Davante Adams on this, and it basically has to do with age, because like I said, I think he's still awesome, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it does come down to team structure and desire here, just because like he's still performing at a pretty high level. Now, Granted, a lot that has been some propped up by touchdown performance, scored in 3 straight games, without the touchdowns, 9.6 and 8.6 in 2 straight games, along with 9.1 points in week 1. I know, take away all of his big plays and he has no big plays type of argument there. But there is something to be said about looking more at the opportunity and how that's being distributed rather than focusing on the results. I think I'd be more trying to buy, like, tier up if I'm a win now team trading Davante Adams, or if I'm a win now team that wants to trade for a Davante Adams-esque player, I'm probably trying to shoot a little higher. But if I could throw a reasonable pick or even a lower pick and a, reasonable longer term player away, I would be willing to trade for Davante Adams. But he's not the highest on my veteran trade target list at the position.
Gotcha. All right. Let us know who your next player is.
Next player is Jordan Mason. So we got the IR stint for Aaron Jones. He's going to be out a little bit longer, but he will be coming back. And I think we saw bell cow Jordan Mason in action. And it's not that it wasn't impressive, right? He did have a really good game in week 3, 2 touchdowns, 116 yards on 16 carries against Cincinnati. And then followed it up with another 16 carry campaign, albeit with a lot worse of a box score, 3 targets, 57 rushing yards, no touchdowns, but he did get 3 targets and 3 receptions to go along with that. I just don't, how much longer are we going to get this? Like, he wasn't super valuable. We thought it would play a little bit more of a fantasy friendly role with Aaron Jones in, but he wasn't really getting that goal line red zone role that we thought he might get in tandem with Aaron Jones. He needs Aaron Jones to be out to get that role. So I think this might be like strike while the iron's hot type of deal, where we're not going to be getting bell cow Jordan Mason for much longer unless Aaron Jones goes down again. But you have the opportunity to sell at a near peak for a guy who I just don't think he's built to be a long-term bell cow. Like, he's not really a pass catcher. I think he's more of a handcuff relief. I think he'd be a bell cow in the right situation in relief as a handcuff, but not as a full-time starter. So he's only 26 years old. That part's not necessarily bad, but it's that is his value at RB24 that to me just doesn't make sense. On either end of him, you have Travis Etienne and Javonte Williams, who, I mean, that right there, I'd rather have each of those players than Jordan Mason right now. So again, just his value is kind of capped right here. I don't think he can be a solid top 24 RB in Dynasty. He's just not necessarily built for it unless there's injuries. Plus, the Minnesota Vikings offensive line has been struggling. Their secondary's been struggling. I think we don't see Minnesota in such a dominant game script like we saw against Cincinnati often this season.
Yeah, I think on principle, I think this is where, if you look into the marketplace and you look at what's happening with Minnesota, you might be inclined to disagree with your statement, but I agree. I mean, when you look at the first two games, and again, it's a short sample size of when Aaron Jones was there, Aaron Jones got in the way of him scoring fantasy points. He just did, even though Jordan Mason had 15 carries, out-carried Aaron Jones in both of those games. In week 2, he got the hamstring injury, but 15 carries in week 1, 9 carries in week 2, or 9 carries in week 2. Didn't get a double-digit fantasy points in either one of those weeks. Now, week 3, like you said, great performance against a really bad Bengals defense. But against Pittsburgh, I was just expecting a little bit more from him. And I'm kind of worried that he's just going to get those grinder touches in between the tackles. Like, it would make a lot more sense. I guess I'm kind of in the middle on this one, because I could see Jordan Mason in some leagues having lesser value than he has on Keep Trade Cut, which is my point here. Like, I think obviously Javonte Williams and Travis Etienne should be valued ahead of him, but I don't know. And I think that would be in most cases, I think that would be the truth.
I think you're right there.
So it just kind of depends on what the price tag is. I think he could be a cheaper running back to go out and get for the short term. But again, it just depends on price. So I'm kind of neutral on this one, but I understand why you're selling, because it wasn't that long ago when Jordan Mason was a nothing burger, and now he has some value. So if you wanted to go capitalize on that, I think that's just fine. So, and especially if you can get one of those players we talked about around where he's ranked in Keep Trade Cut, I do think is ridiculous. So from that aspect, I do agree with you. 92nd overall. I mean, good grief, man. Let's move to my next guy. And I think I'm officially just done with Marvin Harrison Jr. I think I've seen enough, and maybe I could be wrong. But I don't think I am, because he is tied for number 40 in first read targets in an offense with Kyler Murray that did not change offensive coordinators. It's almost like we could have predicted this might happen. And I get it. He caught the touchdown pass last week, but he also dropped a pass that led to an interception as well. And Trey McBride is clearly Kyler's favorite target. And I got news for you. Trey McBride is not going anywhere. So Marvin Harrison Jr. is a wide receiver 1, or no, hold on. He's a wide receiver 2 masquerading as a wide receiver 1. And he looks the part, doesn't he? He looks like he should be so much better than he is. But I'm worried too that he hasn't really learned some of the more technical aspects of football that he should have down by now. And this is according to Matt Harmon, not me. So I don't know. I just think at his current price, I don't want to be frustrated by Kyler Murray not throwing the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't want to be frustrated by Marvin Harrison Jr. not being as good as we thought he was going to be. And when somebody is ranked, and we've already talked about Rashee Rice, so I won't talk about Rashee Rice, but when you're ranked in the same neighborhood as like Trevion Henderson, who I know has not broken out yet, but I think that's coming, Breece Hall, Quinshon Judkins, when you're ranked around some of these players, even if I have to give up a little bit more and go up and buy low on potentially Brian Thomas Jr., who I think is having a rough time right now, but he's still on my buy list because we saw glimpses of it from Brian Thomas Jr. last year, more than glimpses. So, I don't think that that's something we've seen from Marvin Harrison Jr. yet, and it's been over a year now. So, help me out here, Matt. Like, am I crazy, or what's the deal with what do you think about Marvin Harrison Jr.?
No, you're not crazy. Given where he's at, I'm interested. I think that could be another situation, like you pointed out with Jordan Mason, where it's like, I don't know if you're necessarily able to trade Marvin Harrison Jr. like for AJ Brown straight up. Like maybe that sentiment is closer, but I think it like, I wouldn't be shocked if you went to somebody with Zay Flowers and tried to trade straight up, and the Zay Flowers owner was like, no, you're going to have to give me something on top there. I think it's the connection with Kyler, like you said, that I don't want to worry about. I don't think he's not talented. I think there's a lot that can go into drops that are aside from talent. None of us thought that was an issue for him going into the season or even last season. I think he's unhappy. I'm projecting, I know, but I think he might be unhappy. It just says something to me, man. They have a failed drive. They point the camera over, and Kyler's on one bench and Marvin's on another. And it doesn't like, I feel like they don't talk. And like Kyler, it doesn't seem like he gives a shit ever.
Yeah.
It really did. Like they said that Jay Cutler didn't care, which I never understood. Like he's deadpan, but you could see in his emotion that Jay Cutler cared about football. I have not once seen in Kyler's emotion, I'm like, that guy cares about football.
Yeah.
And I'm being a little harsh. You know, I know he cares. He's still around, but man, Seth, if I was Marvin's quarterback after everything that had happened and the things he was going through with his drops, after catching that touchdown pass, I would have dead sprinted to the corner of that end zone and been in there celebrating with him. I think that's just the difference. And I just, again, it's not something I want to continue to worry about these issues. And so if you can have that kind of bump game where you can say, hey, Marvin's not bad, take him. Then I'm willing to explore that because I don't think this is over. Like, I don't think his struggles in Arizona are done.
Yeah. When does Call of Duty come out this year?
Couple weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Just mark it on your calendar if you have one of those two guys. Maybe even Trey McBride. I don't know. Probably not because McBride's awesome. But anyway, who's your next guy?
I'll end it very quickly here with Zach Charbonnet, RB30 on keep trade cut. Don't necessarily think the sentiment is quite there, but we are literally not very far away from Zach Charbonnet going for firsts after week 1 when people thought that he was the lead back. He's not good. He's not good. Okay, cool. He might get a touchdown. So what? 13 points. Woohoo.
Mm-hmm.
We play for ceiling too. And we're talking about a guy who doesn't catch passes. He has he has 2 receptions so far this year, but for 5 yards, his yards per route run is very bad. His true yards per carry per player profiler is 63rd among running backs. He has only 3 evaded tackles in 3 games. And Kenneth Walker is currently averaging 4 evaded tackles per game. He has 0 breakaway runs of 20 plus yards. Kenneth Walker has let's see, what was his breakaway run rate? I have to refresh the page here. It is 7.7. So not great, but 3 breakaway runs does rank 6th among running backs in terms of total quantity. He's a better player in both phases, and it may be harmful to Kenneth Walker, those touchdowns that keep going to Charbonnet, but it's certainly not going to make Charbonnet any better at football. It's not going to make him any more desirable in fantasy. If anything, it keeps his value propped up so I can get rid of him if I have any shares left, which I never had any to begin with.
Yeah. I've never been a big Charbonnet guy either. So, I mean, we are very like-minded. I think maybe sometime we should bring in just somebody who just completely disagrees with everything we say just to see what happens. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe that person doesn't exist. Let us know in the comments. My last guy is AJ Brown. He's wide receiver 18, 53rd overall. And this might not be the best time to sell AJ Brown because, again, I think sometimes keep trade cut is a little bit slow to react. So, I mean, right now it's saying that you could get a first, either 26 or 27 first for him straight up. And, depending on your team structure, if you're a win now team, you're probably more inclined to keep him. But I think, I don't know, this has just been a weird start to the season for the Eagles. And we know that they don't want to pass the ball much. They didn't really, they ranked dead last in the NFL last year in passing the football. Now, AJ Brown is awesome and we saw it, 2 weeks ago, him have a big game, but it's getting really tough. And this is, I feel like this has been going on for a while with AJ Brown. It's getting kind of tough to keep putting him in your lineup week in and week out, because going back to 2024, he started the season off hot with 3 straight top 12 finishes, but then, you throw a dud in there, and then in the middle of the season, he kind of cooled off a little bit, going from week 11, 11.5 points to 22.9 to 11.6 to 8.3. Then he's awesome again. Then he cooled off right in the fantasy playoffs. So, I mean, this offense being a run first, run heavy offense lends itself to that, right? I mean, if they're playing from ahead and the Eagles are awesome, they're not inclined to throw the football, because why would they? And no wonder AJ Brown's getting pissed, because diva wide receivers want the ball. And if there's no reason to throw him the ball, I mean, like I said, why would you take a risk if you don't have to? I feel like that's the situation we're getting into. And he's 28 years old. So yes, I am all for, if I wasn't totally on board, I'm totally on board now, selling AJ Brown for what I can get, especially if I can get a first, maybe even a first plus a little bit extra for AJ Brown. I think potentially you could do that. But what are your thoughts?
It's emotionally tough for me to get around to selling one of my favorite players in the league. I think next week is going to be, potentially another struggle going up against the shadow treatment with Pat Surtain in Denver. He does get the Giants twice before the bye, which is nice. So there probably is and Minnesota. So there probably is a little bit of a window to get some more value before the bye, if that's what you want to do. But how they use it's not even necessarily the game script. And that's he has 8, 10, and 9 targets in his last 3 games. He just hasn't been able to connect with Hurts. 5, 6, and 2 receptions. Last week was particularly a struggle for him, but it always seems like the Eagles kind of have that sluggish start and then start to break things or turn things around. Last season, Brown, was out for a few weeks with his hamstring, but had a really strong start to the season. 2 seasons ago, he had 15, 7, and then 27 fantasy points and started going off from there. It's hard for me to buy that he's going to continue to be this bad. And at age 28, I don't think his value is going to crater that much. So I'm less enthusiastic to sell than you are, but I am willingly admitting that there may be some personal bias involved in that. I think if I wasn't such a big fan of AJ Brown, I would be a little bit more inclined to sell.
Now let's throw out our final player, because we talked pre-show about this player, and we were both like, man, we almost put this guy on the list, but we didn't have the cojones to do it. But we're just going to throw it out to the audience anyway. And that would be one Brock Bowers. Now, it's a little bit unfair because he's dealing with an injury. He's not really in the greatest offense, but he is ranked 11th on Keep Trade Cut. And I'll just tell you this, I have him at 22 in my own personal dynasty rankings. So I'm much lower on Brock Bowers than the general public. And that has to do with the nature of the position, because, we were big on Hunter Henry before the season, and I know Hunter Henry can be hot and cold at times, but man, if you have Hunter Henry, you're pretty okay with that. And some of these other tight ends, like you saw Mason Taylor have a pretty nice game. This always happens with tight end, I feel like, and investing in that position, especially if your league is not tight end premium, even if it is tight end premium, to me, it's not the advantage that a lot of people think it is. And I don't know. I think Brock Bowers is awesome. Where I'm approaching it from is likely he's not as awesome for fantasy football as you think he is. And there are just better assets out there, which is why I don't know if I'm going so far as, I'm going to sell Brock Bowers. But, if the price is right, he's definitely on the table. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not there yet.
Okay.
I'm not.
All right.
I'm not anywhere close to there yet. He had a really good game in week 1. 103 yards on 8 targets, 5 receptions. The schedule does get harder, so there is a little bit, but he's 22 years old and one of the best tight ends in the league. I'm not ready to go there quite yet. That being said, I do think I say this about every player. If someone wants to trade for Brock Bowers, I will listen to a trade offer. Because there's always a situation where you can trade someone, and that's where these conversations get a little bit more nuanced. But I'm not going to label Brock Bowers a sell because I don't think we're anywhere close to that quite yet. Now, if he's week 9, post bye and he's still not performing, we might have to have the conversation. But it could be more Geno than anything else.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I think when we talk about players being buys, sells, or holds, that's what everybody wants us to talk about, which is why we're doing it. I think context matters. So as much, if you leave a comment, as much context as you can give us, that helps us out quite a bit, whether you're a win now team, rebuilding team, what your strategy is, long-term, short-term, all of it matters. So yes, in most cases, I'm just going to say you're not trading Brock Bowers, but I'm just saying, if somebody came to me with the Godfather offer, anything's on the table if somebody really wants Brock Bowers. So we will leave it at that. Those are 13 players that we covered as, 12 as sells, but, we threw a 13 in there to consider as a sell. Matt Babich, what are your final words of wisdom for the people tonight?
First of all, Jersey shout out of the podcast. Going to start kind of rotating these in and out. Josh Gordon, New England Patriots, wanted to break that one out there. Follow us on Twitter. You can follow us at the show at FF Dynasty Table. You can follow me on Twitter at Babich_Matt10. And you can follow Seth on Twitter at Seth_Dwold, DIEWOLD. Please subscribe. Even if you didn't like it, give us a little sympathy like and a sympathy subscribe, and tell us what we can do better. Surely the people that thought we were too low on Dante Thornton, are enjoying our program now as we obviously adjusted our ranks. And sorry, I couldn't get through that. Of course, we didn't adjust our ranks on Dante Thornton, but but hey, we love the discourse. So hop in the comments section. Let us know what you think about anything, whether it was in this show or just some thoughts running around your brain on Dynasty. You can join the Discord as well. Link is in the chat or in the description below. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, and we are getting close to being monetized. We're, I think, 40 away from 1,000. So thank you very much if you've subscribed. Also, click the alarm bell to be notified when new content drops. We're trying to do one of these every week. I don't know if I can promise that the entire season. We have other jobs and lives and stuff, so we do this as often as we can. But our aim is to get one episode a week during the season, and then more episodes tend to come out during the off season, just because there's more content to talk about, like rookies and the NFL draft, and then the lead up to the season, getting all the teams ready for the regular season. But anyway, that is going to do it for us tonight. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but it's okay. Nobody cares about Aaron Rodgers. All right. Nobody cares. And I may be wrong about the Steelers. I don't know. I don't know how they do it or what's going on there.
Frauds.
Because I don't know. I just feel like they're getting lucky. Joe Burrow injured. Ravens are bad out of nowhere. Anyway, I might have to suffer through that. Anyway, the Bears won, though, on a blocked field goal. We'll see you later, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you for watching. Be good, everyone, and we will see you later.